Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode two of the Gloo'd In Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. She started her career off at IBM. Funny enough, I actually started my career there as well. She has stayed at IBM for about 20 years. She started off as a software engineer, moved up into more of the technical staff, and also became a master inventor and spent a lot of time working with open source tools such as Docker, Kubernetes, and in the IBM cloud itself. After that, she decided to move over to Solo. And while she's been here at Solo as well, she's been a top contributor to the Istio project, a top contributor in the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and is the VP of open source here at Solo. So if you're interested in open source software, I think I found the right guest for you. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce for this episode, Lin Sun. Lin, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited that we're doing this together.
I am too. I am too. And just so for the viewers know, I did want to have Lynn as episode one, but she had to go and run around Asia and be amazing and present at all of these amazing conferences. So we had to postpone it, and Christian had jumped in for episode one. So Lynn, this is
Yeah,
long
thank you,
awaited from.
Christian.
Yes, thank you very much, Christian. We appreciate it. But Lynn, this has been long awaited. So. I know you just came back off of a leg of trips, so talk to me a little bit about that. I know you were just jumping around from conference to conference all over Asia. So can give me a summary of all you did out there? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been traveling since Memorial Day. So we had an AI leadership meeting in California from Solo. The leadership team kind of get together on the engineering side to
Hmm.
define our strategy around AI. So that was super interesting. And then I went off home for like 2 days. And then I went to Hong Kong. So I was able to give a keynote at KubeCon China
Very
to
cool.
talk about how to use AI reliability engineering to solve a real problem in my cluster. And I remember the wow effect from the audience. So I got everybody excited about K-Agent, it's particularly the platform engineering in team in the cloud. And then I traveled to Tokyo for KubeCon Japan, where I talk about service mesh is disappearing into the infrastructure. And I showcase the generative AI application I develop and which we use to analyze the mood of the audience.
Hmm.
So that went really well too. And I also give a keynote at OpenSSF Community Day in Tokyo while I was in there. I feel it's hard to say no. So I did that extra day for them. So that was quite cool. And then last week I went to Open Source Summit in Denver. I gave two talks, one around the Istio service mesh and gateway API. The other one is also around K-Agent. So both went well. So I'm very, very thankful. I didn't have to pull out any recording and, it all went well, and altogether I made like 5 or 6 slides because all the talk was just me talking or demo, so it was quite fun.
Absolutely. No, it sounds amazing. I'm curious about, open source in the Asia Pacific region. How do you feel about like the excitement, the movement? Like, were the KubeCon and open source events pretty crowded? Because, I'm over here, we're over here now, obviously in the States, but I'm very curious about, how the Asia Pacific region feels about open source and the community there.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's my first time being to KubeCon China and also KubeCon Japan. By the way, this is the first ever KubeCon in Japan, and it
Very
was
cool.
sold out, like 1,500 tickets all sold out. I would say I'm super, super impressed by the excitement in Japan, like the Japanese culture. It's so cheerful, supportive.
Mhm.
It's just amazing momentum there around KubeCon and cloud native technologies. In China, I feel a little bit different. I think part of the reason was, unfortunately, I think China, the politics getting a little bit more
I see.
complex, and a
Sure.
lot of attendee couldn't travel to Hong Kong. So I would say I think I prefer, it seems odd because I'm actually Chinese, but I think I had a better time in KubeCon Japan because of the energy, the
Yeah,
excitement from the attendee, and also it's just it also have a little bit more international speaker per se in
sure.
KubeCon Japan because we've seen like famous people like Kim Hawkins travel to KubeCon Japan, so there was a lot of like very well-known speakers for KubeCon Japan.
Awesome. That's amazing to hear. I think open source has just been growing and growing and growing over the years, and it's amazing to hear that there's so much passion out there in Japan for it, right? It makes you
Yes.
feel proud of what you're doing, which is very cool. So I want to talk a little bit about IBM. I started at IBM in like 2018 or so, so maybe I was there probably in the last 3 years of your time there.
Oh,
But
yes.
I was in the IBM cloud space as well as a sales engineer. And one of the things that I did notice about IBM, it being such a big company, there was a culture of open source and there was a fostering and wanting of open source there. And then obviously that led to their acquisition of Red Hat, which showed their commitment to open source. But I'm curious, is that kind of where you found your passion for open source? Was your time at IBM? And where did you start really getting into like, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm interested in when you were there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I started working in open source probably for the second half of my career at IBM. So I started working on WebSphere Community Edition when IBM acquired um, I think I remember the open source project called Apache Geronimo. I think the
Yeah,
company is Glucom or Glue Code. I can't even remember the commercial name now, but whenever IBM acquired that company, right, we brought all the developers over and I started to contribute to that project, which was hosted in Apache Software Foundation. It was very interesting. And I also contribute to another Apache project called Apache Areas, which is an OSGI feature pack running on WebSphere application server. So that was super, super interesting. But I would say my love for open source really exploded when I started working on Istio,
Mhm.
when the cloud native technology and the ecosystem of the community really take off, where like-minded people were able to connect through different conferences and connect through, LinkedIn and Twitter. It just
Sure.
take the career to the next level.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have to ask this because I'm very curious. I've heard of distinguished engineers at IBM, and I remember them being like, oh, they were very tenured people. But on your LinkedIn, it says master inventor. Can you shed light on what a master inventor at IBM is? Because that sounds like it's probably maybe even higher than distinguished engineer. I don't know. I'm very curious.
Actually, no. So, yeah, so my title at IBM was senior technical staff member.
Yeah,
So I need to go one more level to go to distinguished
I
engineer.
see.
Just from a level perspective, I probably would make to distinguished engineer if I continue to be at IBM,
Sure.
but I choose not to and not to wait. Master inventor is another title at IBM. Well, when you make substantial contribution to the IBM patent portfolio.
Mhm.
I believe the requirement is you need to have at least maybe 12 or 24. I can't remember the exact number, but I happen to have 200 plus patent application contribute to the IBM portfolio. So I've been a long time master inventor at
Yeah.
IBM.
Absolutely. And I think it's safe to say that your contribution to IBM was a little bit more than mine in my 3 years there. So that's very, very cool. And having 200 patents on your belt is something to be very, very proud of. And so we talked about Istio. And obviously Istio was co-created around 2017 or so by Google, Lyft, and IBM itself. So can you talk to me about the beginnings, the origin of Istio? Because you were right there when all of this was happening. You saw them all collaborate. And how did this collaboration come to be between these three tech companies to create something like Istio? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I still remember 2016, we had our first KubeCon in Seattle. So that was the first KubeCon when Kubernetes was donated as the seeding technology to CNCF. So I was working in the IBM CTO office, and I remember back then at that conference, we started conversation with Google on one of the signature projects sponsored by the CTO office was Amalgamate, which is kind of like a proxy we develop internally, not Envoy based,
Mm,
but can do a bunch of things like a smart proxy can do, especially related to traffic routing and traffic management and traffic resilience. So we started conversation with Google, you know, well, can we collaborate and take our project Amalgamate forward? And back then, at the similar time, Google was starting a project which we don't have the name Istio yet,
mhm.
where the project was more focused on policy enforcement, not so much on the traffic side, but they had a vision also on the traffic side. So the vision kind of aligned where IBM contribute the traffic management side and Google contribute the initial security and policy enforcement side. And Google was very affirmative on they want to use Envoy proxy instead of Nginx, which was Amalgamate was using. And the IBM team was convinced, Envoy is the right way to go. It's more modern proxy back then. So that's how the collaboration started between Google and IBM, all because of KubeCon.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's so important to have conferences like this where you've got like-minded individuals, events, meetups, where you can come together and collaborate and say, "Hey, I have this problem that I'm trying to solve. Do you have something similar?" It takes me to when I was at HashiCorp. I remember when I learned about how Terraform was created. It was just two engineers, the two founders, Mitchell and Armand, were like, we want to create infrastructure, but we are tired of having to go and point and click. So how do we do this in a fast, efficient way? And they just collaborated together and created something like this. And then made it a big proponent in the open source community. So one of the things that I love about open source is that once that collaboration happens, it's given to the people, and that they can take it, create what flavor they want out of it, change it to what they need. So
Yes.
during that Istio project, what was the initiative or motivation to say, well, okay, we've created this amazing thing. Let's just open source it and bring it out to the public, let everybody get a chance to use it. How did that come to be? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. So back then, the IBM Omega Mate project was already open
Open
source. So
source.
it was no brainer from the IBM side to continue push the project to be open source. And Google at the same time also wants it to be open source. So it wasn't like a hard time to convince them to be open source.
Sure.
The gotcha though was whether having it in a foundation. I believe that unfortunately took a long time because it was not written on paper, right? So
Mm.
you all know it still was donated to CNCF much later. I think it's 5 years after its still project was created.
Mhm.
So there was a long history. We don't have to get into
Yeah.
details, but but open source was always the first. What wasn't agreed upon was whether it's in a neutral foundation and which foundation. So that took 5 years to kind of reach agreements on that.
Yeah, I'm sure, right? It's such a big project with two big players like IBM and Google. There's going to take time for everybody to agree on something this is how we want to actually present it to the public. And do we want to donate it to CNCF? Like all these thoughts come to mind. So, after IBM, after, kind of becoming this steering committee member for Istio, you came over to Solo. Tell me about, that transition from IBM and Istio. Obviously Solo, our product Glue Mesh, there's Istio, origins of it, but you could have gone and done anything, maybe worked on another open source project, but what made you come over to Solo, and start collaborating here and becoming such a big part of this company?
Yeah, so I think 4 years ago, right in the middle of the pandemic, Edith Lavim, of my founder, reached out to me, and it was at a point in my career. I feel like, wow, I've done this big company. I know how big company works for almost 20 years, right? If I had this opportunity to join a startup, and if I don't join, I know I would regret it, when I hit the end of my career. So I thought really hard on it, and I thought, there's no better time to join a startup when you're already familiar with at least a good portion of the stack and technology, which is service mesh and Istio, right?
Hmm.
Which is what it wants me to focus on when I move to solo. So I feel like even though I'm changing from a 10,000 X plus company to a 30 people startup, I feel like at least, I know the technology, it at least feels comfortable. So I decided that's a good time to move and just try, different things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it makes total sense, especially being an expert in that field and you see a startup that's, we want to move this Istio project forward and bring it, to the public in a compact and fashioned way. What better to have is someone like you who can come in and do that. So as VP of open source here at Solo, can you talk to me a little bit about your day to day, what you feel like your responsibilities are, what you bring to Solo as a VP of open source?
That's a great question. Honestly, I feel like my role is not very well defined.
Sure.
So I kind of have to, advocate for what I'm doing, right? So I'm running a couple of communities that we are doing at Solo. That's very strategic for Solo. I'm being very present and perceived as a leader, not only in Istio, but also in K-Gateway and
Mhm.
K-Agent, which are two of our new hot open source projects.
Absolutely.
And I try to be very outward facing, right? To be able to be very active in different prestigious conference and try to, have speaking slots and try to aim for keynotes to get our open source presence very, very visible in the community. And you probably see me, write a lot for social media like LinkedIn. You probably see me writing a lot of contents and books sometimes. And also, I try to watch out for what other people are doing in this space and bring that back to our leadership team and bring information back and help us shape our strategy at Solo too. So it's been a fun job. I feel like I'm doing like a tons of things here and there. So a little bit separated. I'm also a manager, so I want to make sure my team is
Mhm.
happy. So I want to make sure they feel contributing. They are amazing engineers. So I want to make sure they feel Solo is the right home for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, great answer. And then I see as well that you joined Solo around 2021, but in 2023 you became, part of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, right? And then you became a TOC member. What does that process look like? Because I'm sure we've got a lot of people that are listening that are passionate about open source, want to get involved in the community, want to get involved in CNCF. But maybe they just don't understand, where do I even start in trying to get involved into something like this? So tell me how you kind of got involved and became actually, in a way working and volunteering and helping for CNCFs.
Yeah, so there are different roles, volunteer roles at CNCF. I almost feel like I've served almost most of the roles, ironically. So I started contributing as a CNCF ambassador, which means, I can the foundation trust me to advocate for cloud native foundation, CNCF, and trust me to speak on behalf of the foundation, which is super cool. So having that trust is not sufficient to get you to the technical oversight committee, which is a much higher bar, right?
Yeah.
Because if you look at the cloud native ecosystem, there's maybe 200, 300 CNCF ambassadors. There's only like 11 TOC members. So in order to get to the TOC member, you have to either nominate yourself or have somebody else nominate you, and then you have to be voted in. So it's a very convoluted process that people have
Sure.
to know you, kind of voted you in. So I was voted in through the governing board. Honestly, I don't even know how I ended up to be voted. I know who nominated me
Sure.
because of my work in the cloud native ecosystem. But I honestly was a surprise to me that I actually was voted in because I look at all the people being nominated. I'm like, wow, this is like an A-star team. So but one advice I would say to working open source and the cloud native community is super rewarding, right? Some of the work I did, I didn't even think was impactful, and I just rolled the sleeve and did the work, and somehow, the leadership team just recognized me and nominated me for like I believe I won the Chapwood Carry Water Award. I think it was in I would say it's in 2024 KubeCon. Gosh, it's been a while. Sorry. Can maybe lose track of the time, but it's just amazing. I would never envision myself winning that award, be on the keynote stage of KubeCon and taking that award from Chris Anizak.
Mhm.
And, it's just and I didn't think I did much at all. So it's just an amazing feeling of open source contribution.
Absolutely. And I feel like if you just came on and said, well, I've done so much and I've done this and I deserve this, that would mean that you didn't do much. But you being this humble and saying, I don't feel like I deserve it, that means you did deserve it because other people were the ones to lift you up. So don't sell yourself short there.
Well,
Um,
thank you for saying that. Yes,
yeah,
there's
absolutely.
just a lot of smart people out there for sure.
Yeah, trust me. I one of the things I like to have, especially with the people I work with, is I like to feel like the not the smartest guy in the room because then I can learn from everybody else. I know everybody else around me is smart, so that means that I'm going to become smarter if I'm around those type of people. So,
Totally. Yeah, I love that thoughts. Yes.
uh, so I want to talk about some of the open source projects we're doing here, where you're maintaining at Solo. First one on my mind is K Gateway. I think you've been a maintainer there since October of last year, and this is kind of born out of 2023. The Kubernetes Gateway API was GA'd, and then all different types of companies and people grabbed it and were like, here's our version of it. Does this, right?
Yes.
And K Gateway came and was born, and now it's something that you maintain. We've got a lot of contributors out there, doing commits, putting stars on it, and everything in the GitHub. But tell me, you know, why K Gateway is different from the Kubernetes Gateway API, just vanilla, and what it does. What makes it different? What makes somebody want to use K Gateway over just going to like the Kubernetes Gateway API?
Yeah, so first of all, K-Gateway implements the standard, which is the Kubernetes Gateway API,
Mhm.
but we also build extensions on top.
Absolutely. Thanks for
What's
clarifying that.
so
Mhm.
what's unique about K-Gateway? I would say it's the 7+ experience of building cloud native API gateway at Solo, right? So we started with Glue when we founded Solo like 7 years ago, before you and I even joined the company, right? So that was like the cash cow for our company, right? It was deployed into many of our customers' environment, handles like very high transaction at some of the largest bank and some of the largest government. So we've kind of evolved Glue to be like the most scalable, most performant control plane for Envoy proxy. So I believe the secret source of K Gateway is because it has that 7+ years of expertise and experience building production ready and scalable API gateway that's Envoy based out there. So I'm very, very excited about K Gateway is part of CNCF now. That's actually the first question.
Mhm.
One of the first question I challenging it when I joined Solo, why not put Glue in CNCF? So
Uh-huh.
very, very excited to see it finally happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you get to like kgateway.dev and you look through it, there's some talk on there on like quite a bit about LLMs and about it, being a good source for an AI gateway. Can you talk a little bit about why K gateways are a very ideal use case if you're looking for an AI gateway and if you're looking to, get some actual help from your LLMs and send that data to the right place, right?
Yeah, so K Gateway has added a bunch of AI functionalities. as we evolve on the AI journey, we realize the connection between the user's application to the large language model, or the connection between agent to the MCP server, or the tools. Most likely you will need a gateway in between, and K gateway, we want to position the K gateway to be the best AI gateway out there in the market, which is why we added a bunch of AI gateway capability into K gateway. So first of all, we are the first project that implements the Kubernetes gateway API inference extension. It's a mouthful. Inference extension in K gateway. So you can easily put K gateway to load balancer between your inference requests in front of the large language model, so it can intelligent route to the right large language model endpoint, pick the right one based on the availability model and also the right HTTP metrics. So that was very cool. And Daniel Hansen on my team is absolutely leading that work from Solo side. The other thing is also we folded a couple of important AI functionality into K gateway, such as guardrail for calling large language model, help user manage secrets and accounts easily, and be able to do basic rate limiting to large language models. So these are fundamental features when users application interact with large language model. So that's what's being delivered today in K gateway. What's coming in the future or being worked on is you probably heard this project called Agent Gateway.
I have.
So we are rewriting the new proxy, which is not Envoy based. There's so much lightweight based on Rust. So we're writing this new AI based proxy called
Very cool.
Agent Proxy, and we're embedding it as part of a gateway. So you could use Kubernetes Gateway API to program this AI native proxy, agent proxy, and we've done some initial numbers around performance and latency. It's just so much better than Envoy. So we do expect to share those numbers soon, but I do think KGB, especially with the AI capabilities that we are evolving, is well positioned to be the best AI gateway out there in the market.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was talking to Christian about this as well, right? When you look at an API gateway in the traditional sense, and then you look at an AI gateway, it's not just rebranding it and naming it now, it's an AI gateway. There's things like you need to account for inference, you need to account for rate limiting, you need to account for which LLMs are accessing what type of data, all these nuances to
Yep.
what an AI gateway is versus an API gateway. So there's an actual need for something like this out there versus a lot of people might just think, I can just use my traditional API gateway or something like Nginx or just the gateway. Like you need to have something that is tailored for AI models for LLMs. So thank you for clarifying that. And there are a lot of contributors outside of Solo to K Gateway. There's a lot of people that are very interested in maintaining it and moving it forward. Can you tell just some of our viewers how they can contribute and get into the K Gateway project themselves if they're interested and if they want to test it out or if they have a feature that they want to create and commit? Yeah.
Yeah, we actually been very well welcoming external contribution outside of Solo because we really want to run it as a real community. So every Tuesday, in fact, in 30 minutes at 3 p.m. Eastern, we run a community meeting
Yeah.
where we share updates from the maintainers. And this is also a good place to seek help. I believe the KGB project is also sponsored at least two Linux Foundation mentorship programs. So we had a lot of
Very
applicants
cool.
apply for that mentorship program. The mentee might already been selected. I've been traveling a lot, but I know Lena and Steven and Lawrence are leading some of those efforts. So that's another way we're mentoring people and where you get paid to work on KGW. One of the shout out I would give is one of the community member. He actually implemented global rate limiting support in K Gateway. It was
Wow.
just fantastic. It's a significant feature that we didn't have time to implement ourselves, and he went ahead and submitted a PR, and he reworked his PR based on the feedback, and he made it happen. So it was amazing.
Absolutely. And it's so that is amazing that you say that because as a solution engineer, I'm out there working with customers and hearing what they're interested in. And I do remember a customer saying, "How is global rate limiting working with K Gateway?" And to hear that somebody from outside is going in and committing
Yeah.
and creating that for us is very special and very very cool to hear. And the other project that we've got is K-Agent, right? And I've been reading up on it. I've been trying to understand it myself, and I'm sure like a lot of people that are viewing it, right? So it is very much a DevOps framework and an understanding of how to implement AI agents in cloud native, but specifically Kubernetes environments, right? Which I think would be something super beneficial to SREs moving forward. People that are maintaining these K8s clusters and would like to offload some of that maintenance to an AI agent. Can you talk just a little bit about how where you feel K agent really fits in like let's say an enterprise or even for an individual contributor, an open source person? Yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say we've been blown away on the momentum of the K-Agent project. We just celebrated 100 days of K-Agent, and we were shocked that we reached not only more than 100 contributors to the K-Agent project, but also more than 1,000 stars of the K-Agent
Wow.
in the GitHub.
That's
And last time I checked, the LinkedIn followers like more than 900 followers, which is amazing. And every week we run a K-Agent contribute meeting. It was very, very attended, very well attended. So after all, I think compared with all the other projects, it's probably the best open source project in terms of like interest and momentum that Solo has ever done, which is K-Agent. Now, back to your question. I think
sure.
the question is around how people contributing to K-Agent or
Yeah, and absolutely where you see K-Agent kind of fitting in like a DevOps environment in like let's say a company or somebody using that. Like where do you see some use cases, some cool use cases from K-Agent, right?
yeah, so one of the cool user cases we heard a lot from the community is for platform engineers, the DevOps engineer and SRE. Well, they can use K-Agent to help troubleshooting their environment.
Mhm.
One of the example gave from the community user was he said he was running K-Agent in production environment, and they normally talk him 20 to 30 minutes to debugging the issue because you have to check like a dozen of things. By leveraging K-Agent, he was able to kind of sort out the issue in 5 minutes because
Wow.
K-Agent did a lot of preliminary work for him and be able to pinpoint, hey, this is what may be wrong. So he can go there and confirm that. So that's number one to help troubleshooting. Number two is a common scenario we heard also from our community user is onboarding. So as a platform engineer, they have to support many of application developers on their team. And sometimes
Absolutely.
they feel bored to explain the same concept again and
To
again
every
and again
application engineer.
to
Yeah.
yeah to every single application team and to every single team who owns the namespace. So K-Agent can be that first point of contact, right? If they really need help and the agent can't help, then they can be the second point of contact. So that's also a very interesting user case. The third user case I've seen is K-Agent has this very interesting framework that's super declarative, and people can use K-Agent very easily. When they build the agent, they can easily share and reuse
Mhm.
in a different environment or just tailor it slightly and then reuse. So we've heard a lot of users talking about how they can share and reuse K-Agent to solve their troubleshooting or onboarding problems. So that was super interesting too.
Yeah, and I going to that first use case, I'll tell you, I actually just had a customer that I was talking to, and they brought this scenario to us was, hey, I have a Kubernetes environment. can I utilize something like K-Agent to have a UI where if I see one of my K8 clusters or pods is in a crash loop back off, I can just ask the agent and say what's going on, and it will go and troubleshoot this for me. So there's a need for these things, like these AI agents,
Yes,
because as somebody who's had to debug K8s before and I see crash loop back off, I'm like, all right, first thought is like, are my resources up? Okay, let me check my logs, let me check my events, let me troubleshoot all this. And that can take 30 minutes to an hour to however long. It just depends on what the bug is because you have to go in and do those commands and figure that out yourself. So I think
yes.
that first use case you talked about is critical for a lot of people and a lot of businesses as well. Um, and then,
Yes, definitely.
yeah,
And there's one more use case I want to add
sure,
is
sure.
if you trust the agent to troubleshooting enough, the other use cases, K-Agent also allows you to plug into GitHub MCP server. So all the MCP server ecosystem, you can easily bring the tools into your agent. So if you trust the agent enough, you can also instruct your agent to propose changes to you and send to you for review with a human readable explanation of why this change needs to happen. So that's actually part of the demo I did at KubeCon China to
Very
be able
cool.
to have the agent to uh, on somebody's behalf on a bot to propose a PR and have me manually review the PR and merge it and then sync it over to my environment to see if the change actually fixes anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And that second use case you talked about, it has been thinking a lot about like the reason IDPs became a thing, like Spotify Backstage became a thing, because you've got like so many developers and so many all of these teams in the companies are starting to have application
Mm,
developers for everything. So a platform
yeah,
engineer is like, okay, just go to the IDP. This is I've exposed everything, all the services you need. Having an agent in there to be able to do that heavy lifting will, I think, just enhance the life of a platform engineer and enhance that job and make it a lot easier. So yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Very, very cool. So I, I I haven't personally looked into Agent Gateway too much, and I'm definitely going to put in a link in the description for our viewers to see as well. So what I'd love to hear from you, if you could kind of give just a definition of Agent Gateway. We talked a little bit about how it's not Envoy based, but just a definition for our viewers so they can kind of understand it before they go and click and start playing around with it themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, so my mental model, I did have the brief play with Agent Gateway myself a while back. My mental model is when you have your agent to agent communicate with each other, or when you have your agent communicate to MCP server, if you need any type of traffic control or traffic resilience, or if you need any type of security policy control, this is where agent gateway can comes in, right? Because it can be that middle person to help you mediate the traffic
I see.
between your agent to agent or agent to MCP server, which is why we call it agent gateway. It could also be between your agent to the large language model, by the way. So so think about it as a proxy in the service mesh, except in this case, it's a it's more tailor designed proxy because it's specifically designed for agent to communicate to either MCP or large language model or to the other agent.
Absolutely. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. It's very versatile, it feels like, which is wonderful. Now kind of going into you've obviously been a leader in this space for a very, very long time. So I want to hear a little bit about your thoughts on leadership, and what it means to actually be a leader. So can you talk to me just about what values you think make a good leader and how that tied into how you've become kind of this juggernaut in the open source space? A lot of people are probably interested. How do I become a leader? How do I think of the next great open source tool and product that I can bring out there for people, right?
Yeah, so I still remember, I think it was 2 years ago, I joined this conference called Open Source Leadership or Member Summit.
Hmm.
And the general manager of Linux Foundation, Jim Zemlin, was giving a keynote about his job. And he kind of explained to everybody at the conference that he sees, people see him traveling around the world and have this fun job. But in reality, his job is more kind of like a janitor, cleaning for people. And he explained the traits of the leader, open source leader, which strike me in a great deal, where he explained in 3H, where he said, the leader needs to be humble, which I definitely agree. And he says the leader needs to be helpful, which I super agree with that too. And he also mentioned the third edge, if you take a guess, it would be when other people are down, uh, the leader needs to be helpful, hopeful, which
Hmm.
I thought that was an interesting way to to rephrase the whole thing. And I've been thinking a lot about that and try to apply to my daily life as well, because I do think the three H he mentioned is just so important working in open source and particularly in the cloud native ecosystem, which is part of under Linux Foundation as well. So I try to practice that myself. And on top of that, I try to be a happy person because I do think like the energy, the emotion is contagious. So when I'm happy, I feel like people talking to me tends to be a little bit happier.
Hmm.
So I try to always try to be a happy person, as happy as I can.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. And I think that does resonate with the open source community, right? I think open source it was meant for everybody to have a fighting chance, for software to just be out there, for everybody to iterate on, for everybody to create. So, that helpful hopefulness, and being humble, you can't have an ego if you're doing the open source communities.
Right.
There are going to be so many people with their own opinions, and you've got to be able to stay
Yeah.
humble and realize that maybe I'm wrong about this, maybe I'm right. And that's one of the things that I love so much about open source as well. So thank you for saying that. That gave me some good life advice as well. So, you know, uh,
That's great. I'm glad
and
it resonated with you too.
absolutely. And then, final thoughts or messages as we kind of wrap here that you want to, give out to our viewers or to anybody who wants to listen here. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say, I posted a post on LinkedIn yesterday. We are still hiring at
Plug
Solo,
in. Let's go.
especially for K agents. We are hiring very talented engineers to build the future of K agent and AI at Solo. So if anybody interested, do reach out. Honestly, I've been blown out on so much interest on LinkedIn, but because we're a small company, we want to have
Mhm.
the best fit, the best candidate. So that's why we want to, send a blast message out, to find the right candidate for us. So
Yeah.
thanks everybody for the interest.
Yeah, I will definitely put a link in the description for your LinkedIn so people can go and check you out and see where that job posting is and all of that. And the final question, when are you going to be back on the road again? Are you going to be going, is the next one KubeCon in Atlanta? When's the next time you're going to be traveling and speaking? Maybe some people will go and see after this. So, might as well say it, right? Yeah.
Gosh, that's a good question. I think I'm going to Cape Cod as you are, hopefully to meet you there in person
Yeah, yeah.
for a company offsite in
Yeah,
September. And then I'm giving a keynote at KCD, Washington, D.C. the week after. So
got
I'm
it.
not going to be traveling anytime soon in June or July. In July, actually, June is already passed. In July and August. So I'm excited to stay at home for a while.
Yeah, I feel like your vacation time really is just, I want to stay at home now because I've been running around for my work. So vacation is just a staycation, and I don't blame that. I don't blame you at all. But Lynn, thank you so much for the time today. I personally learned a lot, and I hope all of you listening and watching us today learned a lot too. But again, thank you so much, Lynn. And
Thank you
we'll
so
talk.
much for having me. It's
Oh,
been
absolutely.
fun.
Absolutely. It's been super fun. Thank you everybody for tuning in. This is episode 2. Like I said, we try to do these bi-weekly. So, look out for episode 3 in like 2 weeks or so. But again, thank you for tuning in to Glued In. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.